Hello, everyone, and welcome to Anatomy of an Adaptation. This is a podcast that aims to compare and contrast classic novels with their cinematic adaptations. I'm your host, Nicolo Grasso, and I'm joined today by the good Tayls. How are you doing, Tayls? Thank you for being here.
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. What I really like to do with this podcast is kind of like widening the net, and one thing that I really want to avoid is talking about the classic novels. That's kind of like the main premise, but what is a classic? And one thing that often gets forgotten is non-English language literature. It's often left to the wayside. And so the moment when I got in touch with you and we were just like talking about like, it'd be nice to do an episode together, kind of like talking about some novels, you proposed a wide selection of Japanese literature. And I was like, this is the right choice. This is the right person for the job to to talk about something different. Which is why today we're here to talk about Ryū Murakami's Audition and the 1999 Takashi Miike adaptation.
ね、痛いとよくわかるでしょ。自分がどんな形をしてるかってことが。
This is the second novel that I've read by Ryū Murakami, but I know you have a more extensive knowledge of his works. Would you like to kind of like introduce us to this Japanese writer? What's his style like? How did you even discover him? That's what I'm most curious about, to be honest.
Oh man, I feel like I did discover him as a kid as this movie was getting marketed or as Audition, the movie was getting marketed in America. Um, I knew it was a book. I don't know if it was actually translated to English at that point, but I like knew his name. And I was also at that point already a big Hideaki Anno fan. The guy who did Evangelion.
Yeah, yeah.
And he did an adaptation of Ryū Murakami's Love and Pop, which I still to this day haven't seen. But I was like very familiar with this name. And eventually, when Haruki Murakami kind of blew up and became the only Japanese author that anybody in America seems to know, I thought it was the same guy and had to like clarify later on when I actually read some of his stuff. But he has like Ryū Murakami has like a set of fixations and like such a distinct writing style that it's very direct. It's in third person, but it almost feels like a running like inner monologue at all times, just interrupted by like external dialogue interactions, like often not even like denoted who's talking, but is so clear in like his characters' voices that like you never need that sort of, identification moniker as
Mhm.
someone as people are having a conversation, as they are often also like one-on-one combos. And he also has like a fixation, much like a lot of Murakami or a lot of Miike's work, um, has like a fixation on sex and like red light districts and fetishes and kind of how they can like integrate into your psyche. I think the book that most people know at this point from Murakami Ryu is In the Miso Soup, about a man who is effectively a sex tour guide in the red light district. I believe it's in Kabukicho,
I think so,
in
yeah.
in Tokyo, um, and which like isn't a poor representation of his works as a whole. I haven't read like everything, and very little has actually been like translated to English, which
Right.
I do not, I don't read any other languages, um, but what is there and the stuff that I've seen that has been adapted, and like just knowing some stuff about his background, and how he is perceived within his industry. Um, kind of lost my train of thought. But the other
Yeah.
big thing about Ryū Murakami is he's a pretty accomplished filmmaker and has adapted many of his stories and short stories to the screen. Um, aside from Audition, like well, I guess he didn't adapt that, but his most famous and well known adaptation is Tokyo Decadence, about
Yeah.
a BDSM sex worker um, living in Tokyo. Um, that is like a real impressive accomplishment of cinema, especially for someone who isn't like um, that doesn't really
Kind of like
matter.
coming from that
Yeah,
background in a way
yeah,
of filmmaking.
absolutely.
Yeah, he's someone that I was similar to you. Like I'd heard of him mainly because of the adaptations. I think the first time I was fully aware of him was when Piercing came out in 2018 or
Oh,
something like
yep.
that. The American film. People were talking about, oh, it's based on the story from the guy who wrote Audition. I was like, oh, okay. So Audition does. Like I was not aware it was a novel to begin with. And then just last year, I was listening to a podcast where they did an episode talking about In the Miso Soup that you just mentioned. And I wanted to listen to the podcast, so I just picked it up thinking, okay, sure, I'd probably listen to the podcast like in a week. Cut to the end of the following day, I had finished In the Miso Soup. I was like, this is unusual. I mean, of course, this is a podcast
Oh,
about
yeah.
books, not only movies. So I like to read, but to have that forward momentum that just keeps you hooked to the page was truly special. And so when you propose to do Audition or like talking about Murakami in general, I was like, yes, this is the chance to do it again. And that's exactly what happened reading Audition to me. When we talked about it, I was like, I'm gonna pick it up. I'm gonna try to, it's a short book, it's not a long book,
Hmm.
but I still managed to read it in basically 2 to 3 days for like
Oh,
doing
yeah.
other things. It's a I don't know how he even does it. It's deceptively simple. It's one of those things where on paper it's like, yeah, like you mentioned, it could feel like it's almost effortless in a way. Just like, like simple characters, broad strokes, but you feel like you know them, you feel like you understand who they are, while always maintaining that external perspective. But it just manages to keep you engaged in a way that truly gets under your skin.
Oh, yeah.
What was, yeah, no, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say he has this like way of writing where it's like it's very direct, very piercing sentences that are very short and like generally don't have that much subtext. He's saying things
Oh,
very
God.
bluntly, and that is what
Yes.
like really has lends that driving element to reading his prose. And of course I'm reading this as an English speaker reading a translated version. I think it was a 2019 translation. I think there may have been one other one from
I think it
a
was like,
decade
I
or
think I
so
read
before.
like 2002, maybe was originally
Oh yeah,
translated,
that would make
something like that.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
the PDF I now have of that cover is like a very silly, very early 2000s conception of like here's anime style, of the main girl in the book.
Which I
Um,
think is maybe the same publishing house as in the Miso Soup, like the copy that I
mhm.
have, which also has this anime drawing on it. I don't know if it's the original cover, maybe not.
It might
But I think it plays
probably is.
almost in the deceptive nature of the novel
Oh yeah,
itself, right? The story
absolutely.
of a widowed filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, who basically holds an audition to try and find his next wife, and he's just smitten with this one girl. And I just love the idea because, of course, we will talk about the movie, which has its own infamy at this
Hmm.
point. But I do wonder how many people, just like casually, they're going into a bookstore and they see Audition is like cute, I guess, cute anime girl
Right.
holding a needle. It's like, yeah, I don't know what this is about. Let's just read it, and just be completely surprised by the twists and turns the story takes. What are your thoughts on this novel? This is not, of course, the first time you've read it. You mentioned, so
No, I read parts of it as a kid. A big entry point for me in film was like we'll get more into this later, but like the Tartan Asian Extreme DVD line and the marketing that surrounded that, and just extreme films in general, just like the most like post 9/11 extremely grim extremity films, like the new French Extremity as well, were like huge draws for me as like a kind of bummed kid in the Midwest and of the US. uh and uh sorry, repeat the question one more time. My
No, just
attention
your
span
thoughts
just
on the
went away.
novel,
Oh, on the
on
novel.
Audition.
Yeah. Man, like, one, I would recommend anyone who hasn't, like, I mean, I assume everyone who's listening to this has, like, heard about the movie, but,
We can
like,
go spoiler, like full spoilers
yeah.
here. People, if you've not
But
watched
there's
at
no way
least
to
the
talk
movie,
about this without talking about the twist of the book, which
yeah,
fortunately is, I think, how almost everybody I've ever encountered learned about this book and film in the first place, and I think that's like a real fucking tragedy, to say the
yes,
least. Even when it first dropped, in festival, like in the festival run, and started getting a lot of buzz, like it was about how extreme this film is, how extreme this book is, and so much of, I think, the success of the book and the film is around obfuscating that it will ever turn truly dark. It's not until about halfway through the book that you actually start getting like real serious hints that something truly wrong is going on, and not just like a concerned kind of unhinged older gentleman. But the book, it just like the movie, it begins as a um relationship drama about a man whose wife dies of cancer very young, and after about a year, his son, who he cares about very much, starts pushing him to try to re-enter the dating pool and like maybe try to land a wife. um and he ends up fixating on um a woman very very early on and very blindly, and the way in which we are able to reside in this man's desperation and desire for love, while still seeing like just how blind he is, it's so compelling. um and I don't know, I have trouble separating the book and the movie at this portion of it, despite reading it
yeah,
twice this year.
yeah. No,
um
they do bleed into one another in a way. One thing that surprised me about the novel, which is always interesting, like I've been trying for some, of course, of these episodes, I've already seen the movie, but generally I'm trying to go into it in the opposite direction. Like I'm going to start with the novel, and then I'm going to watch the movie for the first time if it is a fresh watch,
mhm.
which can be more revealing sometimes. And so I completely agree with what you said. Like it's impossible to separate Audition from the twist, the reveal, the torture that it ultimately ends on, which is a shame because of everything that comes beforehand. As you said already, like it is what makes it work. You cannot just rely on the torture. I think that's something that everyone who has used the novel as inspiration or the film as inspiration gets wrong. Eli Roth, you don't need to rely just like, hey, shock. Hey, you want to watch a movie just like shock? It's just like pain. It's screaming, and people are don't you like it? It's like no. Like you need a build up to it.
Right,
You need you,
absolutely.
you need to feel it emotionally. um and as you mentioned, like there's this entire first part, especially of the novel, where we're focusing on the character, I think Aoyama,
Oh
the
yeah, yeah.
protagonist. Just the relationship that he has with his son, where he feels slightly out of touch with him. He's 15 years old, and it's kind of like he's starting to slip from his fingers. The kid is starting to daze,
Mhm.
and he can't really relate with him anymore. There's all those mentions of like the past, how they kept going to this summer beach house together with the wife, and then once the wife passes away, there's these little remnants of rituals, like the porter opening the door and it's like, where's the missus, where's the lady, not
Mhm.
knowing that she passed away. Like there's so many little details that Murakami adds to just make you feel the history of this family, and the challenge that the man faces in going to step forward, like trying to re-enter the dating pool and trying to put himself out there again. Which is unfortunate that the way that he goes about it is manipulative, to say
Oh
the
yeah.
least, and he doesn't hide it, right? I think
No.
there is a version of Audition where you can tell the person the guy who's writing it is fully on his side,
Hmm.
and you don't feel it
That's not
here.
what the book is at all. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And Aoyama is such a broken individual. It's evident in both the film and the novel, but the only person that he can drop his filter partially and allow himself to be warm around um is his son, who of course is his son, so he still has to have like a deep filter with his internal thoughts as a father figure, and in like many ways he seems like an excellent dad, and that like seems like his greatest success in life. He doesn't He's obviously a very career driven individual
Mhm.
and very successful in that. um but it leaves him cold even amongst his friends, who like he allows himself to grieve around and almost exclusively grieve and obsess around, and those are the only um poor to call obsession a positive emotion, but it's as close to a positive emotion as this man can express comfortably around his one real friend in that corporate environment. um but he just has such trouble connecting with others, um that like he projects himself onto the idea of others without them, um I don't know, without like a real uh reflection of themselves back.
Mm, yeah, it it's something that I've found. I mean, I've only read this in the miso
Mhm.
soup, but I do have this feeling, and even what you mentioned about like the other works of Murakami, you really understands power dynamics,
Oh yeah.
social like class differences, social dynamics, the way that money corrupts and controls everything. Um, and even here, the entire everything that you mentioned about like the corporate friend that he has, the one who helps him set up the audition, there is that moment where he has to switch Aoyama, where he's like, he's just he keeps telling me that this woman is no good. He's just jealous, he's just envious that I
Yes.
can
Yes. Just
catch someone.
complete denial
Yeah, like she's
of the
20
input
years
of
younger
those he
than me.
clearly values to some degree.
Yes, yes, and not recognizing those giant red flags that are clearly apparent, which is something that I think didn't really help going into the novel already knowing where the story leads up to.
Yes. Absolutely.
You mentioned the lack of subtlety, and my god, there's so many parts in the first half. There's like references to people missing limbs, of things
Hmm.
being cut, like constantly. It's like a wink wink for like, hey, hey.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like, oh, we're just setting it up. It- which was very
The
playful in a way. It didn't feel like I don't know.
Oh
Like
yeah.
recently, we talked about Psycho on the podcast,
Hmm.
and Robert Bloch's novel also does so much of this like constant foreshadowing that's just like beating you over the head with
Oh
like someone's
yeah.
gonna get stabbed, like references to death.
Yes.
You're not gonna die by doing this, and just like things like that, which is taken to an extreme. But this is kind of on the same vein. Just like,
Absolutely. And I feel like it's so fucking blunt in the ways that it is blunt. Um Miike and the one who adapted the book to the screen,
Tengan.
Daisuke Tengan,
Hmm.
um like they knew what would fly and like what would be too blunt for the actual movie, and so they had to cut, which what is in my opinion like the scariest part of the book, especially as someone who's like grown up watching this movie, and so like I know it like on a fundamental level. Um, er, but like reading the book, um, there's this passage that I really love. This is the scariest part for me. Aoyama is taking Yamazaki not on her first date, but it is effectively a date. He perceives it as a date. It'll eventually be viewed by both parties as their first date, but a
Mhm.
meeting. And so he goes to this like nice restaurant, um, and he's talking with her, and it's Aoyama's palms were moist with perspiration. He was surreptitiously wiping them on his trousers when something very strange occurred. A man in a wheelchair had entered the cafe, accompanied by an older woman who was probably his mother. They were laughing about something. Still smiling, the youth turned his head slightly, and his eyes widened as they locked on Yamasaki Asami. The smile froze, the blood drained from his face, and he made as if to rise up from his wheelchair. Seeing his distress, the woman leaned over and asked him, presumably, what was wrong, but he merely shook his head. Averting his gaze and hunching his shoulders, as if cowering, he wheeled himself on, toward the far end of the room. There was no change whatsoever in Yamasaki Asami's expression as she watched this peculiar little scene play out. Someone you know, Aoyama ventured. She shook her head and shrugged, apparently just as mystified as he was. The kid must have mistaken her for someone else, Aoyama thought. Or maybe he was just having some sort of attack. He still knew nothing about Yamasaki Asami, but he wasn't going to allow an odd little incident like this, or Yoshikawa's paranoid ravings, for that matter, to burst his bubble.
Amazing, amazing. It's it is something that you can only get away with in a novel. I feel like unless you go for potentially a comedic approach to the movie
Yes.
of like portraying a
Mm-hmm.
scene like this or trying to feel it with dread. Um, but yes, it's chilling, and I don't know. Kind of want to. I want to talk about the character of Asami,
Mm-hmm.
who is mysterious to say the least. It's something that we will see also in the movie. Like you don't
Yes.
get too much explained about her. You know enough about her backstory in the end.
Mm-hmm.
You know about the abuse that she suffered. Um, you know about the trauma that she experienced as a kid that is just carried over into adulthood. But I do find it slightly different. I think because the movie is lacking some of those elements. I like, for instance, this part, knowing where the story is going to, the idea of her as this sort of avenging angel.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that? Because I've noticed, like, even reading it to this day, it's 2025, going through reviews of the book and of the film, it's still a point of contention. Like, is this potentially a feminist story to an extent? Like, I'm using the term loosely in this case. Like, we're not talking about, it's not bell hooks, but or is it a pure product of like misogynist author lingering to like turning women into monsters and vile creatures to be afraid of? How do you feel about just Asami and her vengeance against men?
Yeah, I mean, like ever since this movie and book rose to prominence, that has been like one of the first things you hear about with this film. Either it's super misogynist or it's secretly feminist, but I don't think it's like so black and white.
Hmm.
I think this book is so like clear-eyed about like who these characters are and like what their concerns are, that like it has like, she's a killer and is not all there, but like she is fully realized, like psychologically, like Ryu Murakami has an understanding of how she navigates, just as he has a deep understanding of how Aoyama navigates, how Shige
Hmm.
navigates, and it's not like, I think that there's a, especially late, not lately, but like especially during the Twitter years, everyone has this inclination toward, moral black and white and extremity, and saying like, oh yeah, this is a feminist work, like good for her movies, and it's like you're kind of
Yes.
really stretching this, but especially this movie. This movie is not, it's not trying to make a feminist point. That just is, there's never been, like, to my knowledge, like an explicit feminist movement outside of maybe like advocacy for like certain sorts of sex work following like the criminalization of sex work in Japan in the 40s.
Mhm.
Um, like that just isn't like an ideology that navigates on the same timbre in our culture, to my understanding. And it's also just like not how this book is navigating. It's not how the film is navigating. It's trying to paint these people who they're all anyone in this story wants is happiness. And like clearly it does not pan out for anyone, but everyone is working in a way that they're trying to achieve their own happiness. And like through their own delusions, they end up sabotaging others in massive ways through their inability to be open.
Mhm.
But this is not a feminist book. It's not going like girl power. It's not like a reclamatory revenge. Like Yamasaki, she is a deeply broken individual. She is functioning on these cycles of abuse that have never been addressed since childhood. She was abused as a child and spends her life kind of reenacting various forms of this abuse that were in the book. It's a couple separate figures. It's her ballet teacher and her stepfather
Yeah.
who sexually abuse her and abuse her in other ways. Um, upon men, she has like she has certain triggers that will kind of force her mentally to fold every man she meets into a construct of her past abusers. Um, and she isn't, she does terrible things because of this, but she isn't like wrong to feel this way. You completely understand why she feels this way and why she's navigating this way.
Mhm.
But the book paints her so clearly as like she's in a lot of ways trying her best, but has like far left behind an attachment to reality that
Mhm.
would prevent her from doing these truly awful things. And it's really really sad to see play out in every single party in the book.
Yeah, and there's something in this story that if we want to like detach it from the literal reading of what happens, I think it does capture the scariness of dating, of putting yourself out there,
Hmm.
of putting on a facade, um, to one extent, lying or omitting information
Hmm.
more so than lying. And I think you put it very well. Just like all of these characters are just looking for happiness, for each other, for connection, for longing to just be with someone that they can be vulnerable with. And in both versions of this story, it never gets to the point where Asami freaks out, and I'm like, "Oh my god, she's scared." It's like, no, I feel bad for her because
Hmm.
she's not really in the wrong. And of
Hmm.
course, like she takes it to a very violent extreme, but it does remind people just. I mean, it's not like it's preaching to anyone. Of course, it's not that type of
Right.
story, but sometimes even the smallest lie for someone who is already vulnerable and for someone who takes some time, like I think it's something that the book especially captures very well, is the gradual openness that she has with Aoyama, of
Hmm.
just like opening up more, and they start kissing, and they actually starting to go out on proper dates, and
Hmm.
then when they go to the beach house, and they have sex for the first time, he sees her nude for the first time, you feel that's like stepping stone of like, okay, we're taking this to the next level, and she's
Hmm.
opening herself up again, hoping that this
Yeah.
is different from what happened before. But the
Hmm.
fact that he lied and omitted information about like the son especially, you know, messes everything
Yeah.
up.
Absolutely. And both parties are like really, are really lying to each other and being deceptive at every step of the way in
Yeah.
ways that like the further you get into this, the like more clear that the rotten foundation of this relationship is going to result in like a massive catastrophe. So when Yamazaki fully destabilizes, where she realizes, like, oh, like, the first true destabilization of the relationship is her learning about Aoyama's dead wife, who he still has fondness for, and then she makes him you know, the centerpiece of this film, or of this story, is she makes Aoyama promise that, I want you to promise that you will never love anyone other than me. And he promises, and he means it, and he means it with his whole heart. But he has a separation between like love of her and like an understanding of like, you know, a completely understandable understanding of separation of sorts of love
Yeah,
for
yeah.
his dead wife, for his son, for his dog, you know.
For the dog, yes.
And when she learns about anything else, like past just the dead wife, that is the point that like she falls over. It's done. Like she's
Mhm.
gone. She, you know, there's a sequence 2/3 of the way through the book, um, where you know, they go to a resort together, and they sleep together, and she ends up taking Aoyama, um kind of considers his way through how the night may have gone, but in his head she was spitting alcohol into his mouth and drinking it the previous night, and he believes that maybe somehow she smashed up some sleeping pills and
Mhm.
drugged him, and he wakes up at 3 p.m. the next day, and he's informed that
She's
she had
gone.
left and she's gone, and you know, at this point it's too late. Um, and his death warrant has basically already been signed at this point.
Yeah. And I think this is also a good moment to transition into the film, because
Hmm.
this is when I want to say the true changes and the true differences
Yes.
actually start. Um, of course, this was the first time I actually read up properly about the production. I also listened to the director commentary of Audition, and I really didn't realize who Takashi Miike was before Audition.
Hmm.
Making these, how did they call them? It was like
V cinema, V
V
cinema, just
cinema.
direct to video stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just making direct to video movies constantly, one after another, and then just because the studio, I think it's the same studio that made the Ringu, they wanted another hit, they wanted another like successful horror film. They didn't want something supernatural, so they bought the rights to Audition. They're like, this is gonna
Hmm.
work. They got Daisuke Tengan to write the screenplay, and they got Takashi Miike, who had not directed horror, who
Hmm.
didn't really care for the genre as well.
Yeah.
Uh, and he went for this pure director for hire gig,
Yes.
and it changed his life, which
Oh
is
yeah.
such an like listening to him talk about it. The commentary track was for the 10th anniversary, and you
Hmm.
can just tell he still hadn't really recovered from just the
No.
success, which explains so much of who he is to this day. Where people keep wanting him to be like the great director, I'm using quotes, of like, oh, Audition and like the great. Why are you still making these Netflix movies? And just very plainly, he just said like, I need to work. I need the money. Like you need to
Hmm.
constantly be shooting in Japan to afford a decent life as a filmmaker. And he just takes whatever comes his way. So bless his heart.
Yeah. So like a little like more background on Mike, like when he went to film school, and this is like really, that's kind of strange as a Japanese director of his era. There was only one film school in all of Japan, and it
Hmm.
was run by Imamura Shohei, who's like absolute legendary filmmaker. Especially like his 70s output is fucking incredible. Um, but Imamura Shohei, he studied under him, and then became his AD for a few movies. The film Black Rain, which is a very grounded drama about a community that's almost Ozu like.
Hmm.
Um, uh, that's about a community which is on the outskirts of the fallout of shit, it's either Hiroshima or Nagasaki, but a nuclear bomb.
Hmm.
A community that is rehoused to the outskirts and starts dying of radiation poisoning, and it sounds much more explicit. You might imagine something much more explicit from like Shohei Murmura, who's like famous transgressive filmmaker, but it's like a
Yeah.
really quiet and subtle film about something like very, very disturbing, and it's I think only his second AD credit after he was AD for a number of Hong Kong films, The Peacock King, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. um he was AD on that, and then as you said, he got into V cinema, and especially like his Triad trilogy, or I think it's like Triad Black Society, something like
Hmm.
that. Were like the things that were really propping him up until the year that Audition released, where this was the movie that got him international acclaim.
And was that Alive the same year, or right before, or
Yeah,
right
so it
after,
was
something
actually
like
like it
that?
was the same year, and
Okay.
there's like a I'm blanking on the specific film festival, um Rotterdam Film Festival, and it was Dead or Alive 1, Japan Black Society, which is the third Triad Society film. That's what I was thinking of. And Audition premiered at the same festival, and the word of mouth was so strong. People were reenacting the ending of Dead or Alive 1, which I don't dare spoil, in the hallways of a film festival, which is just like
That's
crazy to imagine
amazing.
now. Especially
That's so
like
cool.
Rotterdam Film Festival, like, cinephile ass film festival right there.
Rotterdam is
Just getting
quality,
people
by the way. I
giddy.
really want to go there.
I would
Rot-
I would also love to make it out there someday. And then Audition, which became so immediately controversial, and you're watching like 14 films in like a row, like you're watching so many movies, you're mainlining movies. People tend to have a very extreme reaction to any level of extremity amongst all these like quiet art films. So it really blew up in a big way and led to, as I mentioned, I'd explore earlier, but like the uh, Asia extreme craze that was effectively like a glorified marketing campaign around this. And yeah, the other big film from this production company, which is actually this one's actually a Korean Japanese co-production. Um, Audition is specifically, but the other big one was, as you mentioned, Hideo Nakada's um,
Ringo.
Ring, and a big part of the marketing for that was upon spoiling this movie. It was upon like saying, "Hey, there's a big torture sequence at the end. People are shocked. Like people are clutching their pearls. You gotta check it out." And it was like one of the big like moments in international cinema being released via physical media of the 2000s, and unfortunately kind of like spoiled aspects of the film for everybody who was into movies. But it did like lead to his career becoming like monumental, despite him in a lot of ways being like very workmanlike. Like he does not turn down a job. He's turned down like a handful, like he's talked about it. But
Which
there
is
was this
crazy to think
interview,
about. And he
right?
has an incredible work ethic. Like, even
Yeah.
listening to him talk about making this film, it was like, I took us like almost 3 weeks to shoot it, and he was just so relaxed because he was so
Hmm.
used to like shooting in one movie a week,
Oh yeah.
basically, like 1 week, 2 weeks, just go, 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 like long nights, just like people keep
Yeah.
pushing through. Um, but also people like working with him.
With him.
Um,
Yeah.
and I can see why. And to honestly, I think that's when you truly feel the disconnect between the way the European or American film industry work. I already feel it talking to people who are in the States. The way they make movie in the States is very different from how it is in
Oh
Europe.
yeah.
So the way it's in Japan is literally another planet at this point.
It's wild. Like he's not like the only one doing this either. Like
Oh God.
it is kind of the standard for if you get traction as a director in Japan, like you're pumping them out. Like like Kinji Fukasaku, he was putting out like 4 movies a year. Like minimum for like a decade. Who's like one of the big, not triad, but Yakuza filmmakers,
Mm.
and Miike also is kind of the successor to Fukasaku. But Miike, for the like next like half decade following Audition, he was doing 5 to 7 movies a year. He has well over 100 features to this day. I think like when this Arrow Blu-ray release, which I like watch a bunch of interviews and commentaries with him, um released, he had I think 90 non-V cinema like theatrical releases to his name at that time, and he's had so many since, you know. It's
He's
kind
not
of
slowing down.
staggering.
He's not
Yeah,
slowing
and like,
down.
like it's kind of the standard for like it to be like writer director often. Like he didn't write this one, but like he's known for it, and it's like pretty common in the Japanese film industry. Like controversial dude because of some bad shit he did. But Shion Sono, during his height, he was directing like 9 to 12 movies a year, and about half of those would get crazy critical acclaim. He was kind of a
Yeah.
phenomenon in the 2010s. So it's really remarkable and really crazy, and just kind of continuing on the like history preceding this film. The writer who adapted Murakami Ryu's book to the screen, Daisuke Tengen, um, he met Miike in film school. They were like longtime friends. And he was known for like writing Shohei Imamura films, like his teacher. And basically like inherited this guy. Like he wrote The Eel, which is one of Imamura's best, and he wrote this like a really weird movie that I think is brilliant called Warm Water Under a Red Bridge. Check that one out if you want. It's got a
I'll
weird
add it to the
premise.
list. I'll add it to the list.
But it's a very surreal like sex comedy from the late in Imamura's career.
Hmm.
But that's kind of the lead up. And I'll end my rambling with a quote from Miike. As he said, like following uh his reaction to becoming big and known as a horror director. So he says, "Everyone thinks of me as a director of horror and violence. I think I've only made 3 or 4 like that. Maybe people think that's quite a lot, but I've made over 80 films, so it's a very small percentage. Actually, I've made some films including some violence, but even so, very small amount. The audience chooses the films they want to watch, and they choose to focus on these films. European and North American distributors tend to choose those they believe are representative of me, violence and horror director. It's fun to have a label placed on me this way. I'm not that sort of person people imagine I am, so I try to act that way. I probably have a degree of this in front of me, though, even though I don't recognize it myself, almost as if I go to international film festivals as a different person. That is so fun. It releases me and allows me to pretend to be someone else. So the film gave me the freedom to do anything I want. Meaning, Audition.
Bro, good for
Which
him, honestly.
good for him, man.
Good for him. Um, audition. What was it like watching it for the first time? And also revisiting it for this podcast.
As a kid, I I was really into like extreme films and like like Lars von Trier and French Extremity and
Like
like
pushing the
gore
envelope.
films. Yeah, like I'm the exact age to have been like a millennial like on shock sites and like watching gore videos and shit like that. So it was like very formative in my taste, and hearing about it in that, I think I had a very similar experience to a lot of people. I was like, it's kind of like, it's good, but like that's it. Because I was like 12,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in middle school or whatever, and now like I tried revisiting the film, like mid 2010s. I can't remember my reaction then, but I effectively watched it like consciously for the first time since I was a kid. I'm 30 now. Just yesterday, and I watched it twice. Once with Tom Mess commentary, who's like Takashi Miike's biographer.
Hmm.
I loved it more than I ever have. I thought it was brilliant. The
Yes.
first half of this movie it's all in the style of these like uh you know big romantic dramas that were huge studio productions out of Japan in the 80s. Um And then, like, as soon as there's this point in the film that is almost like a switch being flipped, and Aoyama goes to visit um this apartment, and he goes in. It's this man in. He goes to visit the a ballet studio. It's revealed, and there's this man, and he's sitting in a wheelchair, and he's playing piano, and he's facing away from the door, and Aoyama approaches, and it's quickly revealed that this man, um, you know, is a person who sexually abused um, Yamazaki when she was younger. It's kind of folded two characters from the book. But he stands up, and he's got these prosthetic feet. Tom Mess in the commentary described it very well. It's as if they were designed by Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw
Oh,
Massacre. They look like shriveled leather, you know?
yeah.
These leather feet, clearly his legs were cut off at the ankles. And from that point, the movie becomes fairly hypnagogic. It becomes very psychedelic. It turns into like an extended dream sequence. We see things that may not have happened. We see extended versions of scenes from earlier in the film's timeline that may or may not be true. We see outright hallucinations during these, including like during Aoyama and Yamazaki, one of their dates. One of my favorite moments in the movie where Aoyama's dead wife and his much younger son are sitting at a table across from him, and his wife looks at him and pleads him, like, please don't marry this woman, anyone else, not her. And it's one of the more unsettling things I've seen in recent memory. Though Miike wasn't yet actively emulating David Lynch as he would with Gozu, which anyone who hasn't seen Gozu, or that movie is Miike like explicitly trying to do like
A Lynch
Mulholland
film.
Drive era Lynch, and he's the most successful anyone has ever been at trying to be Lynch. It's really fucking impressive, but like this moment, it has the same energy as the man in Lost Highway, um, calling the main character from his house. For anyone listening who is familiar with that film,
Yeah.
and it just shakes you to your core, and the film keeps cascading in on itself, and it stays in that register until the final act.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. I think that's something that I felt was missing in the novel for me was this entire psychedelic investigation. Basically, there's the character of Aoyama in the book is very passive after after the woman leaves. It's like okay, it's just like mopey, standing around, just said she's left, and that's it. He's not doing anything about it. And I like that in the movie they actually expand upon it and they actually have him, like you mentioned, go out and
Oh yeah.
oh man, it's I'd seen this movie years ago. When it became. Just like similarly to you,
Mm-hmm.
I got to it at much older, but like watching the more extreme movies, those classics, going down the list of cult films, and of course, Audition was on there, and I was blown away more so because I knew of the ending, but I had no knowledge of anything that came before. And that's what truly surprised me. I was like, oh, like I'm actually engrossed in here. I'm laughing a little bit. Like there's some laughs in here. The tone as
Oh
you
yeah.
mentioned, like this
Absolutely.
this almost soap opera drama romance in the first half that takes you by surprise. But then yes, you get to this second half. You get to the light switch comparison is perfect because you literally get like that wide shot of the exterior of the house, like tilted camera. They're using this like filter over the lens to cover the sun. It's already like okay, this is
Mm-hmm.
this is different. And then the lighting changes, the
It gets all
colors start to
yellow in that
it
deeply
gets
2000s
yellow,
way. It's
and then the
rotten.
colors pop. It goes to this hotel apartment building. It's all red and the blue of night. Like it's all coming together, and it's truly glorious. Like I watched this movie. I was very lucky they showed it for some beautiful reason. I don't know why, but it was
Ooh.
showed in my tiny town in Italy at the cinema, the restored version, 2 years ago, I believe, at this point.
Yep.
And watching it in a cinema with people, and I bet you many of them had not seen this film before, judging by their reaction. Um, it was so engrossing and so, I don't want to say joyful because it's probably the wrong term for this type of story, for this type of film, but it just made it feel so different than just like watching it at home. And it's something I always say. I'm Even though the actual experience per se can suck if you have the wrong audience, I will always champion, if possible, just like the cinema experience, because it's
Oh yeah.
something else. When it works, it's beautiful. And Audition on the big screen, like it's also one of those movies that I always forget about the way it's structured. The way that you mentioned it earlier, but it is much bolder than people give it credit for. Like for
Oh
everyone
yeah.
focusing just like on the torture at the end, the constant back and forth, the way they play with time, with perspective, it's something that's very much missing from the
Oh
book.
yeah.
Not in a way that makes it lesser, but just makes it a different beast, right? I don't
Yeah.
want to take anything away. It could be so easy to be like, I think I read somewhere it was like, oh, it's like a trial run or like a draft script, like reading the novel. It's not like the film. It's like, it's
It's
different.
not quite. It's
It's
doing a
different.
different thing.
It's the beauty of
The book
adaptation.
is
That's why we're
interesting.
here
The ending
to
of the
talk.
book was how I remembered the movie from childhood and like how it flattened
Yeah,
everything. And
just
then I
straightforward.
had forgotten about the temporal stuff that Miike and I don't know who edited this, but his editor decided upon. But like, man, does it work?
It makes it so much more tragic as
Yeah.
well. I mentioned it with the novel itself, but especially with the film, you get to those final moments following the torture, following everything, where
Yeah.
Yamazaki, she's just lying on the floor and looking at him, and like repeating that sentence over and over, and just you feel the pain that
Mm-hmm.
they both share at that point. They
Yeah.
both hurt each other in various degrees
In
of
different ways.
intensity, in different
Yeah.
ways. In different ways. Um, but they
Who
both
could
hurt
say
each
is
other.
more to blame? You know,
Yeah, yeah. Someone went a bit too far, maybe.
a little
And
bit.
that's something like it never felt reading the novel. The fact that you have like that beautiful passage that you read with the man in the wheelchair. You don't have those references that make you feel like she's just doing the amputation and that's that. In the novel, it
Yeah.
feels like that's her modus operandi, but she lets them live. Like she lets them live with the guilt, with the shame
Yes.
of betraying her, of lying to her, cheating, whatever. In the film, it comes more across as just like, yeah, she's more of a killer. You also see this, maybe it happened, maybe it didn't happen, where she goes back and kills the ballet professor, the ballet teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also, I mean, we haven't talked about it yet. We keep talking like going around circles around the actual torture scene,
Yeah.
but just in general, the effects in here are
Oh my
sick
god.
in
They're
the
so
best
good. I
way.
wrote down like just very matter of factly like a sequence of shots here. This is just straight from my notes, not flowery. Dream sequence where we see Aoyama and Yamazaki in the room where there's a body in a bag. Yamazaki transforms into his secretary. Then the girl Shige had over earlier in the film. He pushes the morphing woman away, and when he looks back, he sees the body in a bag in her place. The body comes alive and crawls out, naked, with long disheveled hair, stumps for legs, missing 3 fingers and a tongue. He emerges. Yamazaki is heard vomiting into a dog bowl before offering the man in the bag a feast of bile, which he ravenously consumes. We flash back to the apartment revealed earlier to be the murder scene of one of Yamazaki's former lovers. Yamazaki, now appearing as a young girl, turns to Aoyama and says, "You will only love me, won't you?" Mr. Shimada, having previously established to have sexually assaulted and abused Yamazaki, appears and falls from his wheelchair after attempting to stand. Dance, you bitch, he says, before revealing a burning poker. Insisting she dances, he approaches an adult Yamazaki in a ballet studio, legs spread. The brand turns to chopsticks as he approaches. The chopsticks approach her genitals as if attempting castration before transforming back to the poker and branding her inner leg. Yamazaki beheads Mr. Shimada with a wire saw as his piano playing in the background of the scene falters and blood pours from his throat. And this is a 10-second sequence.
It's amazing. It's that, and that's what annoys me so much about the infamy of the film, because it's so easy to focus on, Aoyama on the ground and she's playing Kiri Kiri Kiri, the needles, which is disturbing. It's effective.
Yeah, but it's become a meme almost. Like in film discourse, it is the meme that defines this movie when this stuff should be the thing that defines the film. You know?
This is what gets truly unsettling.
Kiri Kiri Kiri, that is the release. That is the part that it is less uncomfortable to watch it because Yamazaki doing this unimaginably horrible thing is in her own way finally free. It's the one time in the movie she seems like she's in her element. And
she's so happy. Look at her, she's smiling.
Look at her. She's having a great time. And it is horrifying, but it's almost a relief from what we just saw.
Yes. I think that's just an issue of horror cinema.
Yes.
The fact that people concentrate so much. I don't remember who it was. I think it was, honestly, I think I heard it the first time from Chris Stuckman when I was like watching reviews, like God knows, like 15 years ago at this point, Jesus. But I remember he mentioned something about like good horror is kind of like sex. Like it's not just about the release. It's all the build up to it. That's
it's
like
the
you're
texture.
not in it. It's the texture. Yes. And it's so easy to turn it trivial. It's so easy to turn it banal, which is what happened with Audition. We mentioned it before, but just like the fame of it became, it's about the torture. And actually today, right before this, I was like, I'm rereading passages from the book, doing this, doing that. I was like, you know what I've not seen? I've not seen Imprint. Have you seen it?
I haven't. I've seen the poster. That's it.
Yes. Because they were mentioning it during the director's commentary. For people who don't know, Imprint was the final episode of the first season of Masters of Horror from 2005. And it was an audition reunion. Takashi Miike and Daisuke Tengan getting together again to adapt yet another story, not by Murakami, but another story that heavily features torture. And I watched it just as a point of comparison, just to have fun. And in a way, I was left disappointed because so much of the extremity in it, which is gnarly, it's troubling imagery, to put it mildly. But it felt way too close to what people turned Audition into, which is not what makes it work, in my opinion. What makes it truly special, what makes it the classic that it is. It's not because you're turning on Audition and in the first 25 minutes you have a 5-minute extended torture scene of a woman just constantly screaming as she's being harassed. It's like, no, there's more to it than that, and you need to build up. You need to lead to that. And I don't know how you feel about the ending of the film, like this climactic release, as you mentioned, that has become iconic for better or worse.
Oh, I mean, I love the ending of the film. I think a lot. So the final shot is Yamazaki on the ground. Her neck is broken, complimenting. There's an early shot in the film of her kind of looking down, and her vertebra are kind of poking from the back of her neck. It's complimenting that it's her head, and you can see her broken vertebra pushing sideways through her neck in a way that should not happen in a
Not natural
person in excellent health. If you believe it. It might happen if you get launched down a set of stairs and land on your head.
She flew off those
She
stairs.
flies. His son got an athletic future ahead of him. But she she's like dying. She may be dying, but she looks like she's in a state of bliss, and it cuts to credits while focusing on her grinning, framed by the doorway outside of the living room in which our main character was just subjected to some not super fun looking torture.
No, no. And to be honest, like there's not much else changed
No,
from the book to the film.
there really isn't.
There really is. They just expand. I think it is definitely just a matter of tone,
Yeah.
of texture that you mentioned, of turning it almost not fantastical, but going into this more almost metaphysical, abstract, like we mentioned, like jumping through time and space that Murakami is not really interested in. And even the
No.
way that, and like, bless him, his writing, the way that is so direct makes the impact of the torture, just like reading it on the page,
Oh yeah.
really unsettling because he goes just for matter of fact. The same way he would describe, a dialogue or people walking and entering a room, he describes.
It's just like stating, hey, this is happening to this guy. In the
Yes,
same way
yes.
that it would describe him like eating breakfast. Like, but it's just more step by step.
It's sudden. It's sudden and it's startling. It's effective. Like the way he conjures those images, which in some like small details are not exactly like in the movie. It goes a bit further than that. I think he even describes the death of the dog, which is way more brutal in the like it's sadistic
Yeah.
in the book. In a way that thankfully they almost shy away from in the film. In the film, it's just
They
like,
still show it, but like only after it's
cat.
happened for the most. It's mostly off screen.
Yeah.
I think what like is so interesting about his framing of his writing is like, so like usually when you write an erotic thriller or you make a erotic thriller film, you extend the sensory elements of sex to everyday interactions, right? Like you get the sensory feeling of fucking by way of like talking with someone or like looking at a thing. It's why Crash is so effective because it just like extends these like rays, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, everything is kind of permeated by this. Whereas for him, instead of extending that like sensory element outward and like like Simon Long would, in his throughout his career, he does the opposite. He says, hey, like life is kind of boring and mundane, and like you are simply a collection of like memories and assume your identity by way of those cascading memories. Like he is doing the inverse. He's stripping the sensory from the sex, from the torture, from the things that we would normally associate so heavily sensory. There isn't that much pontificating in his prose about the incredible pain of having, your ankles sawed off. Like that's not really an element. That is there. And that is why his writing is so often so haunting.
Yeah, beautifully put. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything else that you would like to add about Takashi Miike's Audition before we transition slowly into our closing thoughts and final questions.
1 second. I'm going on Letterboxd and looking at his movies real quick. I no, not really on Audition itself. But I think it'd be fun to like, have like a recommendations segment where I can throw out some movies that I like that have some
Please do this. I think this is a good moment actually for it. Yes, if you have anything Audition related or other Takashi Miike, because I'm sure, like I've seen How much does Letterboxd say? I've seen 15 of his movies, which is nothing. It's 12%. So I have a long way to go. So I
Oh
also
yeah,
gladly
I've
take
seen a
recommendations.
comparable number as well. I want to say within his filmography. I'm gonna say my favorite, and then also the one that I think a lot of people wanted this movie to be. So,
Oh,
Audition, the poster child of Japanese extreme film, whether it deserves it or not. Um, Miike really only has one truly, truly shocking movie that is meant to offend, that is meant to overwhelm the senses, that has a really genuinely sick sense of humor. So if you are wanting that, there's a movie called Visitor Q.
yes.
I don't want to say too much about this movie, but know you've been warned. This is the only one of these that he ever did that actually requires any real like hesitancy when recommending. But Visitor Q, it's out there for
Yes.
those interested. And my personal favorite, Miike, is actually a remake of Kenji Fukasaku film. And I do prefer the Fukasaku film. I think it's much more violent and brutal. But Miike, as we were saying, like doesn't think of himself as necessarily like a violent or brutal artist, right? And I think it is kind of true here. This movie called Graveyard of Honor
Oh,
about
I've not seen this.
oh man, okay, so
Oh,
like both films are about the same thing, but it's about this abusive man who treats women terribly, who is an absolute brute and has a developing heroin addiction, who kind of accidentally brute forces his way to the top of Yakuza family. And this happens less than a third of the way in the film. And from there, it is one of the most harrowing spirals you will see in a movie. Like, watching this movie feels like when I watched, like, Requiem for a Dream as, like, a 10th grader for the first time, you know? Like, it is
gosh.
a journey into true misery of this horrible man ruining his life like few people will ever ruin anything. Um, it is not necessarily shocking, but it is a horrible feeling to experience, and it takes a certain kind of artist to like actually capture the emotions that are here. It's like if Lars von Trier wasn't like making films for 12, or, for like edgy teenagers. It's a good. I wholly recommend Graveyard of Honor. Do you have any Miike that you'd recommend in general?
One of the first one I watched, I think it was Blade of the Immortal, which I guess it's a Netflix original.
Hmm.
But I used to watch it on Netflix when it first came out. I was like, okay, this that one felt special, but it was quickly succeeded by, of course, classic 13 Assassins. It's great. Um, Also reunion with Tengan, also co-written by him. Um, but I you mentioned Visitor Q. I think if people
Hmm.
want the flip side of that, because the only thing I was not expecting rather from Visitor Q was the video quality, because that's like
Yeah,
early
that's like high
consumer grade
eight
cameras.
level camera going on there.
If people have problems with Inland Empire, they have not seen Visitor Q because
No, they have not.
it which plays into the twisted mentality of that film. But also from the same year, I think, which is insane. Like I don't know how
Hmm.
he pulled it off. But Ichi the Killer, also another
Oh
like
yeah.
infamous classic. And that's more for like the edgy. I don't even know. It's like it's so weird that he made Visitor Q and Ichi the Killer in the same year, and they are
Oh
on
yeah.
two completely opposite ends of like depraved cinema scale. Because they're both insane, but in very different ways. Even the ways they're shot and they're put
Oh
together,
yeah.
and like how they want to disturb you. Um, but yeah,
Uh, Also, Ichi the Killer. I did wear a t-shirt with a shot of like a piercing like BDSM magazine
Yeah,
from
yeah,
the
yeah.
90s out of Japan for the recording of this. Because Ichi
Special
the
honor.
Killer. Yeah, absolutely. Miike, I see you.
He knows
But Ichi the
suspensions.
Killer
He
is
knows
so comic. It's very silly and absurd, and Visitor Q is as well. But it's almost like a superhero movie.
in cartoon
In its
logic
structure, it's
throughout.
cartoonish.
Yeah.
And so is Visitor Q, but in like much more offensive to the senses ways. Um, but it's this really, the Ichi is this really fun crime noir film that could only come out in the early 2000s. It's like, one of those movies everyone hears about at some point and most people check out, but if you haven't checked that out, it's
It's
guaranteed
it's
good.
it's
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 almost
worth a
like
watch.
it's almost working that not anywhere near as offensive, but in a similar timbre to the Untold Story or Ebola syndrome out of Hong Kong from the 80s. I don't know
That
if
sounds
anyone's
familiar.
it's a movie about a about a man who turns the owners of the restaurant he works at into sausages and serves them at the restaurant while also like becoming a super spreader of Ebola himself after he learns he's immune to the virus. It's just like crass and offensive and gross, but very fun. It's a really good entry point movie for like uh for category 3 films, which is like a whole classification in Hong Kong of effectively like NC-17, but if it was an aestheticized genre of black comedies.
It's something we need
Watch
to
that
bring
movie.
back. We need to bring back
We got
this
to bring
type of
back Cat 3. It's good. It's
gotta bring
good.
back cat free.
Um I have
Yeah,
a
there.
host of movies here that I want to recommend of like people becoming very unhinged or like women taking out pretty crazy revenge on people. Um the first of which is this movie by Ikeda Toshiharu called Mermaid Legend, which is one of my favorite Japanese films ever by the director of Evil Dead Trap 1. It's a
I've had
great
this on my
revenge
watch list for a
film.
while. Actually, I think
The
someone
final
on a podcast
35
mentioned
minutes or
it.
so is one of the coolest bloodbaths you'll ever see. Like, doing something on the level of, like, the finale of Kill Bill. Which is not a movie that really hits for me anymore, but, like, it's in that direction. And it's a damn good movie. Super bloody, too, for anyone who's, like, wanting some of that around Halloween time, or I assume this episode will go up just for anyone still feeling the bloodlust after Halloween there. Another one I really want to recommend is also recently restored and put out by Error 4444 Blu-ray label by punk director icon Sogo Ishii or Kiryu Ishii, a movie called The Crazy Family about a satire about a family that absolutely loses it in suburban life. It's very fucking funny. Watching them tear down their house, do more destruction to a set than you maybe ever seen. It is fucking shocking. Nobody died making this movie. It looks dangerous every moment of the film.
Wow, I think I've heard of both those films because I follow Blake Hester from
Oh
the
yeah, he's
Something
a good friend
Rotten
of mine.
podcast. There you go,
Um,
there you go. Because
he
I
he's
was like
doing.
those movies are very.
He made the shirt that I'm wearing, and then he also he got hired by Air 444 to do one of their t-shirts, so keep an eye out for that.
Nice, 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 nice,
But yeah,
nice.
I Blake and I we love that fucking movie. That movie's so fun. Both these
There you go.
movies we're huge
That
fans
in the
of.
Miso Soup connection was Something Rotten podcast when that came out
There we
last
go.
year.
Another
I was
one
like,
that
I
I
need to
have
read it.
featured on before.
It's great,
Um,
great podcast.
Other like overlooked stuff in that vein. There's this short film. It's about 50 minutes. By Sato Tomoya. Called Lila, Lilya. Track it down. It's on YouTube. Um, Otherwise, it's only available in like a Telluride like horror shorts compilation disc. But it's about a woman who her job is to be a photographer and videographer for people committing suicide. It's very
Hmm.
cold in like similar ways to some Miike, but it's visually super interesting. I really recommend this film to anybody who can handle that sort of subject matter. Um, Other movies I really love, the movie Symptoms from 1974. This one is by Euro horror legend Jose Larraz. It is so autumnal. You feel like you're watching this movie. It feels like you need a cup of hot tea. You need a blanket wrapped around you. About a eccentric woman living alone who has a friend come to visit her for the first time. I don't want to say anything else about what happens, but I'm mentioning it in the presence of Audition, so you may glean a little bit.
Dark turn, dark turn.
A little
I
bit.
imagine.
So alongside Audition and Ring, the production company that distributed those in that first run of like Asia Extreme also distributed another pretty problematic filmmaker's film, The Isle. I'm not going to recommend The Isle, but I will recommend his film from 2004, which is one of my favorite films ever, called Three Iron, named after
Yeah.
a golf club that plays a key element in this movie, about a man who breaks into homes and repairs people's items as payment, and one day breaks into the home of someone who is being abused, and he decides that he would like to save this woman. I have, I believe, two more recommendations. There is a movie called Freeway, directed by Matthew Bright. This movie is incredibly trashy. It is, I believe, Reese Witherspoon's first film. It stars Kiefer
Okay.
Sutherland.
Okay.
This movie is brutal and has a very unhinged sense of humor. It is a white trash retelling of Red Riding Hood, um, about a woman who takes revenge on a man who takes advantage of people, who hitchhike down the highway in their stretch of California. It's a great time at the movies. It has some dated material, but it is, I can't recommend this enough. It's one of my favorites of the 90s if you are in the mood for that sort of thing. And the final one I have to recommend is,
What's
oh,
called?
actually I have two. Brahma Yugam from 2024, by Rahul Sadasvian.
I've seen that one. I've seen that one. Yeah,
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 do you
yeah.
want to pitch this one? It doesn't have too much to do with Audition. I
Go,
just
go,
love
go,
this
go for
movie.
it. Go for it. You're on a
Oh,
roll.
yeah, it's about this man who, while wandering the forests of India, finds a very rich individual living with a servant in the middle of nowhere, and something is going on. There is some overlap with Audition, but it's closer to like, what if Robert Eggers did a Bollywood film or a Tollywood film?
And
Um,
beautiful black and white
oh my
cinematography as well.
god, does it look good?
Yeah.
The sound engineering is incredible, which I actually did want to. I'll bring up the one with Audition. So I have a surround sound system, which is like a lovely privilege for watching at home. But with
Nice.
Audition, it has this really interesting sound engineering decision where the first half of the movie, before the dream sequence, it barely utilizes the surrounds. It's mostly going like front, right, center with its sound. Like it may as well have been like a stereo
Stereo.
film. The dream sequence kicks in, you're just plunged into a world of discomforting sounds in your ears. It's a really cool
Nice.
experience. And the final one, sorry for being so long winded in my recommendations, that I'm going to recommend,
No.
which is also a pretty upsetting one. What's new? The movie In a Glass Cage from 1986. Um, it is uh,
Cage.
yet another very upsetting movie by Augusti Villaronga. I can't pronounce his name. Please correct me. But In a Glass Cage is about a teenager who is tending to a man with polio in an iron lung who was in charge of child experimentation division during the Holocaust. And I'm sure you can extrapolate how this may overlap with Audition as the film goes on, but it is very brutal. So plenty of warning on that. So those are my recommendations. Do you have any that you'd throw out there that aren't directed by Miike?
Oh gosh. Honestly, at this point, I'm blanking. To be
That's
perfectly
okay.
honest,
I gave
I'm just thinking
a
about
whole list.
you gave and the good thing is that actually some of those I already had on my watch list as well. But it's just I think we were talking about this off cam of Mike as well. That yeah, there's just so much to watch, and the watch list just gets
Oh
bigger
yeah.
and bigger. But I really want like I want to savor some time next year to just like take time off from work and just like
Oh
watch
yeah.
films.
Just
Just like
mainline. It's a good
yes,
way to be.
yeah,
Whenever
for
I go
sure.
to a new city, I try to hit all the independent theaters and see at least like one movie in each. It's
That's a good way of
practice of
spending
mine that I
time.
really love.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. And
I always
especially
like
with these
stretching my.
movies. No,
Oh
no,
yeah.
no. That's just like watching. It's like I know how it is for people who are not used to exploitation cinema,
Mm-hmm.
extreme cinema, or anything that's not just conventionally normal. Let's say in the
Yeah.
mainstream, um, where it's hard for someone who's not used to it to see the comfort in them.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking, like, even listening to you give this list of recommendations, I'm thinking like, oh god, like I'd love to watch this and that, but for other people, you'd need like a list of trigger warnings, content warnings, just like brace yourself. If
Therapist
it's the
on
first
speed
time,
dial.
since yes, it can get a bit much for some people. It also shows just how desensitized we've become
Oh yeah.
in
I
some way.
mean, I spent this past month until October came in. So all of September, I was like, okay, I've always wanted to watch all of the video nasties. Which
Wow,
for anyone who
nice.
isn't aware, that is a list of 72 films that Thatcher's censorship board released in 1981 of movies deemed too reprehensible for consumption in Britain
Badge of honor.
during that. Yeah, it truly is a badge of honor. Is it is look, Thatcher's censorship board, they know how to curate a vibe. Um, Half the movies are excellent. The other half are trash. You know, most of them are trash in the most beautiful way that like they just
Endearing
make you
trash.
feel a little uneasy, and then some of them are like Nazi adjacent films, which like I'm not gonna say anyone should watch those. Um, I'll work my way through the whole list. I'm committed to it. But I just hit 36 out of 72 of those movies, having seen like
Nice number.
a dozen of
Nice.
them before.
You're
Really,
getting there.
really great tour of the depths of exploitation, and like a lot of people's like, I feel like a lot of people get into film. Like a lot of people in the like 90s and 2000s got into film just trying to track down these like video nasties, which was mostly a marketing thing. So it's like really interesting getting to a lot of these already being someone who's like relative like not a bit I'm pretty well read on like exploitation history and pretty well viewed. Like I see like
Yeah.
around 400 to 600 features a year, and have for decades. And so getting to some of these and being able to like really understand their context and like actually appreciate them like much more than I would have had I seen them when I was like 20. Like now I've seen like like almost all the big like Mondo cannibal films, which is something that I just wholly wrote off as like all the same thing and just not worth anyone's time when I was a kid, or a college student. Um, it's just really rewarding to like plunge yourself into the depths of any subgenre. It doesn't have to be exploitation.
Before we actually close this off, now I'm just curious. What's the newest movie that unsettled you?
Ooh, let me look real quick. There's got
Sure.
to be.
it's one of those things where I'm sometimes thinking about it myself as well. Where I usually go to the movies by myself, but sometimes, like, there's some friends who want to hang out. And I say, yeah, we can go watch a movie together. And if it's like a horror or anything like that, it's usually really intense for them and
Hmm.
really, it's like fun or just okay for
Yeah.
me after we've seen like thousands of times. So I'm curious what's maybe this could be like a nice final recommendation if you have any, or not even recommendation, but just title to
Okay.
throw out there. I'm
I
just curious.
I love horror. I have such a bad hit rate with modern horror. I watch a lot of it, but there's not been a ton I've really like. I love weapons that didn't unsettle me. I don't go to horror to be unsettled unless like I'm really digging in.
Hmm.
Um, but the most recent movie to really unsettle me, which may be the like most unsettling movie I've ever seen, I love it so much. I think it's fucking amazing. It is one you've probably heard the name of. It's Ruggero Deodato's House on the Edge of the Park, which came out in
Oh,
1980. It is a video nasty. It stars David Hess. It was kind of imagined as a reworking of The Last House on the Left, which itself
also
is a
David
reworking
Hess.
of Virgin Spring. Yes, so
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like Deodato here, like he pulls one of the most charismatic and destabilizing performance I've ever seen out of any actor from Hess here. He
Wow.
is a fucking menace. The first third of this movie, you think that like even though it is going for the like uh Last House on the Left riff, like you think maybe they're about to destabilize this and like go for this guy, he gets welcomed into a rich household, and these people are being like truly shitty, like reprehensible rich people type shit. And you think they're about to do a reversal before David Hess takes complete control of the situation and like plunges you into the most. Watching this movie feels like 2 hours, or like I said 2 hours, it feels like 2 hours, hour and a half in that one scene in the Clockwork Orange. In the Clockwork Orange, it is that feeling the entire runtime. So like, be prepared. I wasn't ready. I didn't expect to be taken so aback by a
So,
movie in
yeah.
2025, and I was floored. This movie, the mass like not a broad recommendation for anybody on here. It has some of the most terrific sexual assault you'll ever see in a film. But
Just
like,
like Deodato in
whoa.
general is a hard recommendation, even
Yeah,
the big like
exactly. This
cannibal
is the hardest
holocaust
of
and
any of
those.
the ones I've mentioned. But like, whoa, holy shit. Like for reference, anyone listening, this is the guy who directed Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah.
And
Italian
like,
pride
yeah, no, I
from
mean,
my
look,
side.
I think that movie's great at this point, like issues and all. But
Mm.
like this is the most upsetting thing he ever directed of the like 10 or so movies I've seen from him. So, you know, maybe don't check it out, maybe do. But if you do,
That's
good luck.
that's one way to sell me on a movie
How
for
about you?
sure.
Have you seen anything that like really put you on the wrong foot? Anything like that? Left you uncomfy?
Oh,
Had to take a
recently.
Tums?
It's just like it's too much.
It's too much. Need that
Um,
barf bag.
I'm like going through the list recently. I've not felt well, um unexpectedly, mainly because I did not expect it in that sense.
Hmm.
I finally started going through Gregorakis filmography
Ooh,
recently this
yeah.
year because it was like it's time. I'd only seen Mysterious Skin before, and I got to the Doom generation, and not only is it just incredible
It's a
as a just like
heterosexual
as
movie
a
by
film,
Gregor Rocky.
just a heterosexual movie. It's so beautifully put together and fun and vibrant and sexy and horny and everything.
Ooh.
But you get to the ending of that movie that I'm not gonna spoil. I was
Mm-hmm.
not expecting it,
It is
and
grim.
it's grim, and he makes a statement. Gregor
He
Aki had
does.
things to say with that, and it was just very. cathartic than to go and read some reviews of the movie and people talking about it. And I've read some people who wildly misinterpreted that ending.
Yeah,
It's like,
they
okay.
sure do with that one.
Um, but I think
Have
that
you gotten to
like,
the living end yet? Sorry to interrupt. Have you seen the
yeah, yeah,
living
yeah,
end
yeah, yeah.
yet?
No, no, no. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
going
that
through
was
them
my favorite
chronologically.
Rocky.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So good.
So subdued as well, like with the ending,
Hmm.
especially living end. Oh, the final shot with the sunset. Oh my
One of the
god,
best,
that's so good.
or one of my favorite, like, conversations in a film in the 90s where they're talking about, like, kidnapping George W. Bush and injecting him, or George Bush one,
Giving him
senior,
AIDS.
when giving and injecting him with AIDS blood so that they get a cure faster. One of my
Um,
favorite moments in any movie ever. Thank you, Greg.
for people who have seen, like, go watch Greg Araki's films. They've aged gracefully. If of course, if you like, I hate the term camp. I think camp has been wildly misused over the past few years, but he made proper camp, a proper successor to John Waters, and just taking it a step further than what he was doing.
If you haven't
Yeah.
seen it yet, and you're digging, you're in a Greg Araki mindset, you're going Greg mode. Um, Really overlooked queer new wave director, Asian director as well. John Moritsugu is, do not overlook this guy. This guy is brilliant. Watch his film Terminal USA. He somehow convinced PBS to fund one of the most perverse comedies I've ever seen in my life. That's just like a completely satirical, completely camp upending of suburban American living. A type of movie I love with my whole heart. Terminal USA. AGFA, American Genre Film Archive, recently restored and distributed all of his stuff in one box set that is well
Nice.
worth tracking down. I don't know how it's released in, I think you're in Italy, right?
Yeah.
But you're
Where
gonna love
there's a
that when you get to
will,
it.
there's a way.
Oh yeah, exactly.
um, on that note, I think we can
Yeah.
transition then into the final question, bringing it back to Audition.
Yeah.
Murakami and Miike.
Yeah.
After this conversation, which version of the story do you prefer? Do you prefer the novel or do you prefer the film? There's
I
no
think I
right
prefer
answer.
I think I prefer the film. And like had I not like revisited the film the other day, I would have gone with the novel. Just from like how it had ingrained in my memory and like
Hmm.
just personal misconceptions of what it actually was. But I'm film all the way. Like read the book, especially since it's like sit down one afternoon, knock it out in an hour or two, But like, uh, depending on how fast you read, but like that movie, it's got the juice. That movie's got it.
100. I have to agree. This is. I don't want to say easily to the film. It always feels like it's doing a disservice to the novel. It's like, no, the novel is also well worth reading.
Oh yeah.
And again, you wouldn't have the film without the novel.
Nope.
Show respect, people. But it's fine. It's so unique even now, and it's always one of the things that I love about like iconic movies that have inspired other people. You always go back to it, and it's like, okay, I can see why people were inspired, and it also inspires me.
Yeah.
Like even now,
Big
I'm like
time.
I'm planning a feature film for the future, and just like thinking of ideas and ways of like just making it work in a way that's not the usual story, the way people make them, and just getting to that switch in here, getting to that, the vision. There's that one. I don't want to say random, but there is a random shot of just a girl standing behind a tree in an empty
Oh
field,
yeah.
desert, just like unsettling imagery like that. It's almost like a more surreal version of the cursed tape from
Yeah.
Ringu. Like, okay, just like unsettling moments and disturbing imagery, which I love in the commentary track. Tengan was saying like, I wrote some of those things because usually like, directors don't shoot them, and then I was watching the movie and there's just like
There it
tons on
is.
the floor flopping around. That's exactly what was written on the page. There it is. Fun, 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 fun. But speaking of the novel, do you have a favorite quote? I know you read already a passage of the book. Do you maybe have like another quote that you prefer. If you don't, that's totally fine.
I think I read it off. It was that
You
initial
read it off.
paragraph of the boy in the wheelchair freaking out.
I have this passage where it's after a moment of violence, and the quote reads, "You didn't normally strike someone unless in the grip of some powerful emotion. That's what violence was. Emotion leaking out from consciousness into the physical world, linking up with the muscles of the arms and shoulders and diaphragm, and inevitably, the face. Stifle emotion during an act of violence, and the face becomes a blank, unreadable mask." And it's those are the moments where like you're reading Murakami, and it just like just like he puts them there. It's like
Oh yeah,
saying something so simply but also beautifully in a way, just talking about violence,
just
like the way
distilling it like that.
distilling it. That's perfectly put. Just like distilling it, getting to the core of what something is. And in a story about two people essentially wearing different masks in front of each other, um, violence is the true equalizer
Mm-hmm.
in a disturbing way. Um, and what about film? To close everything off, favorite scene from the film, if you had to pick one. I can go first if it helps.
Go ahead.
I mean, shocking. We've been speaking for 95 minutes. We've not talked about the actual audition scene.
It's so funny.
It's so funny.
And they like utilize like it was just like a bunch of like first time actors and crew members like doing their thing and like improv
So
from the
cool.
leads for actors. The two leads, like the look that I'm blanking on his name. Aoyama's friend keeps shooting him as he's like fangirling over Yamazaki, like the overt horror, like my boy's lost it. Ishikawa. Man, so funny, so like horrific. He conveys so much in those sequences, and it's just like I think in the commentary track I watched, Tom Mess, uh, said that this was the scene that Miike most regrets putting in the film. He felt like it went on too long, but like,
He
no
says it.
way.
He says it.
He gets it.
He's like
He
watching
nailed
it,
it.
and he's like, it's too long. Oh, it's just so it just takes so much time. But I think it's if I think that's one of my favorite scenes of the film, outside of everything that we already talked about, of like the dreams and the visions. Because if you want to again distill something, you need to feel that length. You know, just like the build up and the people they're coming, and Aoyama keeps checking the list. There she is. She's coming. She's a little bit closer. It's just like waiting and waiting and waiting until you get to her. And there's something about the fact that they choose not like a casting couch. It's not a casting couch place. It's not a comfy office. It's this giant barren hall with
Oh
just a
yeah.
desk and a chair.
It's like they're holding the audition in a gym. You know?
Yes, yeah. With just like windows covered up in the background. It creates such a yeah, like it plays into the horror of it all. Like even if someone was not aware of this being a horror film, there are enough details that just feel slightly off.
Oh yeah.
Even then. And that entire sequence is great. But I don't know if you maybe have another scene that you wanted to highlight.
Yeah. So I think the first date with Yamazaki and Aoyama, is so brilliantly shot. It has so it starts off and it's like, hey, here is a point of view shot from Yamazaki's perspective at Aoyama, and
Mhm.
he's staring directly into the camera, and it's so unsettling. And then it shifts to a over the shoulder shot, um, at
Yamazaki.
Aoyama.
Or
And then it shifts to this shot that becomes a visual motif of Yamazaki, like, squared off in the frame from behind. And it's how you always see her in the film, like, regardless of her age. Like, a couple different actresses play Yamazaki, but it's always from this 3/4 rear angle with like something boxing her in. And then it goes
And the
on to
hair
be like,
covering as well.
we're going to, like, the editing rhythm, it feels as if it's going to settle in after that into a shot reverse shot, but it never does. It goes right back to the Yamazaki point of view, and it is even more destabilizing the second time. And it feels destabilizing, but it feels so intimate, and it gives a different effect than when, like, the talking directly into the camera is often utilized in other like horror films. It feels wholly unique. It feels like one of the like more interesting like decisions in the shooting process that was made. And it's just brilliantly edited together and well acted.
And I don't remember if it's in that second time we go to the POV shot or when we go to one of the wide shots that you mentioned. But there is just the crowd disappears
Yes.
for like a couple of shots. There's no one else in the
There's
rest. It's
nobody.
just them,
They're in the isolation chamber.
which again conveys that idea of just like the intimacy that can come as you start dating someone. Just like you're just wholly focused on them,
Yes.
but not in a way that's romantic.
Yeah, it's just like a halo around
Yes,
them. They
yes,
have to look
yes.
in that direction, you know?
Yes, and the frame is completely like the composition is completely off because they're not like well lit and centered. It's just this again destabilizing, but
Oh,
great
yeah.
choice. That's
The
again
shot,
great
it is
film.
taken straight from one of those studio romantic dramas from the 80s. It's taken from Yoichi Higashi's Metamorphosis from 1986. Like it is intentionally mirroring the dating scenes in that romance film.
There you go. There you go. But again, people, of course, if you've listened this far, we're curious to know what you think is the best version of this story. If you've not read the book, please read the book. And of course, please go follow the lovely Tales here, wherever they're on internet. If
On
you want to
Letterboxd,
share away your URLs, but also everything will be in the show notes of the episode. Is there anything else you want to plug before we close it off? You're content
Not
with the
really. Just
Letterboxd.
my Letterboxd. I'm Tayls on Letterboxd. Tayls. I don't do wordy reviews. You just might find a new movie through what I am logging on there, and if I follow you, I promise I see everything that you post. And if you watch a movie I haven't heard of, I'm probably gonna watch it soon. So get ready.
Speaking of badges of honor. That's like managing to watch something you're not aware of. it's
tough. You gotta
impressive.
dig.
And I love all the recommendations you always have. Like it's not. I mean, it's dangerous because
It
that's
is.
when
You just
the
fall
watch
right in
list
like
keeps just gets bigger and bigger, and it's a rabbit hole. But I think that's what's fun.
One
about
day
this.
I'll watch all the movies. There won't be any
One day.
left.
One day it will come. Meanwhile, you can follow me on Letterboxd, on Instagram, pretty much anywhere at MickeyGrow97. You can watch my short films and videos on YouTube and Vimeo at Enjoy the Movies, and of course, you can follow this podcast on Instagram at Anatomy of Adaptation Pod. Right now, we are closing in for the end of the year. Awards season, lots of things are happening. So next time, whenever the next episode comes out, we're changing gears a little bit, and we will be talking about Thomas Savage's The Power of the Dog and Jane Campion's Adaptation. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, we hope you have a lovely, lovely day, and we hope to see you again soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye.